Hey dancers, it's time for activity number 5, our Pride Rock painting. For today's activity, you're gonna need the following materials out of your bag. First, you'll need that really heavy paper that we put back in our bag yesterday. This is watercolor paper, it's really thick. Your watercolors, paint brushes, any that were included in your bag, and there's also one that's in the watercolors already. Your crayons, a little cup of water, and some paper towels. You'll need these for our watercolors today. The technique we're using for today's activity is called a watercolor resist. We're gonna draw a little picture with some crayons and then take our watercolors and paint over top of our crayon drawing, and it's gonna result in this really beautiful picture where the crayon picture pops and we've got beautiful watercolor background behind it. This drawing, we're gonna be drawing Simba on Pride Rock. Now, it's really important when we're doing a technique like this that you color pretty hard using your crayons so that when we paint our watercolors over top, the crayon really pops out. So we're gonna start by drawing a big triangular shape with our crayon coming out of the side of the paper. I'm gonna kind of curve mine a little bit to make it look like a rocky cliff. And then we wanna color that in really well with our crayon. Great, now we've got our Pride Rock. We're gonna move on to drawing our lion, our Simba character. Now for me, I'm gonna start by using my yellow crayon since it's nice and light, and then I can go back over and add some more colors. I'm probably gonna wanna use some oranges and some browns to make it look a nice golden color, and maybe even use a black crayon for an eye or for the lion's mouth. We're gonna start by drawing kind of a flattened oval shape. Flat on the top and circular down on the bottom. You see it takes up about the middle section of this Pride Rock shape. In order to make the head, we're gonna take a little line up and curve over the top for the top of the head. Bring its snout out just a little bit. Give it a little open mouth. And then a nice neck all the way down. Now let's draw some legs. The legs are gonna make kind of like a triangular shape and then come down into its feet. And then we'll do a front leg, very similar. Now we know that lions have 4 legs, so we need to add 2 more legs. Let's put the back one on there. Broken crayon, no big deal. And let's put another front one on here. This one we're gonna make look like it's walking forward. Come down straight, down almost all the way straight. Then bring the foot out just a little bit. We need to add on the tail, just a little curve with a little poof on the end. We'll fill that in with some beautiful colored fur later. I think I'd like to go for the furry mane on mine, so I'm gonna go ahead and make mine be a Simba, make mine be a male lion. We're gonna start right about the middle of the head and make a shaggy, shaggy mane looking like it's going down its back. Then we draw a little curved line just behind where its face would be and come down and swoop down at the bottom. You see how it looks like a really thin S? And we add in some more shaggy shagginess down at the bottom. Shaggy, shaggy. Now we're ready to color. For my lion, I'm gonna make his mane be a little bit darker. I often see darker brown manes on the lions if you go to the zoo or on nature documentaries, which I love to watch. Now, very rarely is anybody's hair ever just one color. That includes lions. So I'm gonna add just a little bit of highlighting in there, add a little bit of orange. Looks beautiful and furry and fluffy. Now, I don't have exactly the color of crayon that I want for his body, so I'm gonna do a little bit of mixing. So I'm gonna start with my orange crayon and lightly fill in. I almost forgot to make his tail shaggy brown like his mane. Awesome, and I want to add a little extra yellow onto mine to make him look nice and golden. A little yellow plus the orange gives that beautiful golden color. And lastly, I want to add a little dot of an eye. And I want to add a little nose. And put just a little black on his mouth so we can tell that that's his mouth. Now let's talk about our watercolors for a second before we get started. One of my rules of thumb when using watercolors is never to use brown, which is on one end of your watercolor set, and never to use black. Why, you might ask? That's because when we add brown and black in watercolors, it makes things look really muddy and really dirty. And for the kind of art we're doing today, we don't need those. So I want you to pretend that that brown and that black are not even one of your color options in your watercolor palette. Choose a paintbrush. Let's talk a little bit about our watercolor technique. These types of paints are called watercolors because you need to use a lot of water. So you're gonna start by dunking your paintbrush's hair into the water. Shampoo it up a little bit. Feels good. Now we're gonna choose a color to start with, put it into the paint and swirl it around. Now it's very important that we're just doing a nice gentle shampooing with the paint. We do not, I repeat, we do not want to give the paintbrush a bad hair day. Don't smush it in. You're not scooping up paint. You're swirling it around and you can see it starts getting a little bit bubbly and you can see the paint color getting onto your paintbrush. So I think I've got enough on there to start. Move my paints out of the way and let's see what happens. So for this, you get to paint right over top of the crayon. You do not have to worry about painting on top of something and it covering up your beautiful drawing. So next up, I want to have orange. What's really awesome about watercolors is that when you put them together, they kind of start doing this little bleeding thing where it almost looks like tie-dye on your paper. Watercolors are totally one of my very favorites. And I want to teach you a really cool art magic trick. Wash your brush off just a little bit in the water. It's okay if it's got a little bit of a color to it. Do not put any paint on your brush. Just have a little bit of a damp brush, just a little water on it. And right where your two colors come together, if you're doing multiple colors, we're just going to finely brush that edge so that the colors blend together a little bit more. That gives it that kind of tie-dye look so that it looks like things are blending really nicely instead of having sharp painted edges. Make sure you're not leaving any white space. We don't want to leave any white space on this paper at all. Now that you've got the idea, I'm going to speed through my painting so we can see what your final results are. Wow, isn't that cool? Look at how beautiful our drawing looks that we did in crayon. And I just love all those colors of a sunset, all the different colors like a tie-dye in the sky. So beautiful. All that's left to do now is to just let it sit and let it dry.